What's up, you guys? So I don't usually post anything to YouTube. I've been very iffy on what I want my YouTube to be, or if I want to do a YouTube, which, by the way, is normal and natural because it's a human thing to be unsure about things. But if you want to be successful, probably don't do that. And I'm not claiming that I'm headed on a direct path to be super successful with Instagram. I do want to be successful with Instagram, with YouTube. But I do want to put some stuff up here. Not sure if it's because I want to build my brand. Ultimately, it will contribute towards my brand. But sometimes I just honestly want to, and I'm not saying like, wow, I'm Jesus Christ, and my words are magic. But I'm saying I honestly want to be a positive influence. And if I can benefit somebody by hearing what I'm saying, then I want to benefit people's lives. And this is one of those videos. So I don't want to forget about what I was just going to say. Oh yeah, I just remembered. So lately I've been, and this is going to be a long video, unapologetically. Lately the past 5 years have been me trying to get my head out of my ass. Let's take the past 10 years. I got back from Honduras 10 years ago. I was on a 2-year mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I had Jesus Christ on the left side of my chest day and night. Only took it off when I was sleeping. All the time I had Jesus Christ on my chest. I had a black little plastic, like a plastic placard that said the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints. And Jesus Christ's name was the biggest. And we were supposed to represent Jesus Christ himself, and we were supposed to represent the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints. So you see my YouTube videos where I cuss and I make jokes and that stuff. Obviously, I'm not a missionary at the time. I'm still a baptized member of the church, so I'm not probably supposed to be making some of the jokes I make or saying some cuss words, but I do. And I'm not saying that's good, but I don't want to get into a philosophical or a moral discussion about, because I also believe you should be your authentic, who you really are. I don't believe you should just cut pieces of your personality out because it doesn't fit rules of a church. Now, I kind of do and don't disagree. I do and don't agree with that, because you should, if you want to be a member of a church and live the standards, you should live the standards, whether that fits your personality or not. But this video is not about the church or living the standards or whatever. And I mostly do keep most of the standards. But anyways, I'm talking about, I was a missionary for 2 years, okay? No television, no music, only church music and spiritual music. And I dated a girl who listened to Kanye West's like Jesus Christ album, or I don't know what it was called. Like, it was like all talked about God and Jesus. I don't know if she was keeping the mission rules, because she served a mission. I don't know if that was breaking or keeping the mission rules, but all in all, I think, she was probably great. I know she's a great missionary. So memories, right? But I was a missionary, and back in the day, you couldn't talk to your family. You could write them letters on Monday. Now, it was a weird verge of, that was when people were chatting people on Mondays. We could only talk to our outside world on Monday. So you'd write emails home, and if your family was online, they'd chat back with you like instant email chats. You were not supposed to do Facebook. You were not supposed to do any other social media. You're not supposed to text them. You could not call them or text them, obviously. That was strictly off limits. Now, this information might get slowly lost over time unless it's recorded, because the mission rules have changed. So, for example, the missionaries today, full-time missionaries today, I've heard, can call their family, can talk to their family any which way, video chats. When I was in the mission, we could call our families twice a year, only twice a year. And it was, if we wanted to video chat, we could, but it was only twice a year. So I saw my family members over a 2-year period from when I was 18 years old to 20 years old, 4 times. One time I didn't want to talk to my dad because he was not being clear with me about a lot of things that I knew in my heart had happened, but I didn't know with factual evidence, but I knew something was wrong. And he was being very like an FBI agent, like, oh, I don't know anything. What do you think I know? Are you saying I know something? Or what are you referring to? He was just being shady as fuck. And sure enough, he was being shady as fuck. I didn't know he divorced my mom and married another woman till my mother told me when I got back physically. My dad's a piece of shit. And I'll tell that to his face. I mean, I don't really want to say it to his face because I've already told him to his face I don't think he's a man. Because what a man would do and not do, he doesn't meet that. Now, I'm not saying that I'm like that I have the biggest balls in the universe. I'm not saying that I'm the perfect example of a man. But I have certain principles of things I will and won't do. And that lets me say that I'm a man. And it's not like a competition. It's not like a bragging thing. It's just there's certain things. And same thing with a woman. There's certain things that a woman wouldn't do. And if she does those things, she is still a woman, but she's not honoring what it is to be a woman, you know? And also, you know, we have this whole issue of judging people. Who are we to judge? We should judge ourselves and everybody else. But the ultimate judge of who goes to heaven or hell is God. But if you go through life without judging, that's a stupid way to go through life. You have to discern what's good, what's bad. You know, and we should respect everybody, but that's another topic then if people have really earned our respect. Like if there's a huge piece of shit out there, you should give him some respect as a human being, but you're probably not going to respect him. And that's all I want to say about my father. For years when I got back, I was very angry at my father, extremely angry, because he was abusively controlling and abusively strict with me. I mean, to a level which only in hindsight I can see it was psycho. And if he had been a guy who met certain standards in my mind of like integrity, honesty, you know, he's willing to defend the weak. As a man, he's willing to stand up for the innocent and those that need protection. And he's straightforward, takes accountability. Like me, I've done shitty things and I've told people, hey, that was shitty. There's relationships I've had where I've plainly told the person that I failed or that I wasn't treating them properly and things of that nature. I think when I was the shittiest person was probably, well, let me say this. Without going into that. But, you know, there's a code you have to live by. All humans, we have to live by a code. None of us are perfect. But if you dip below that bare minimum code of what a person should be, what a human should be, you're just a piece of shit. But I was very angry at my father for years. And I was very confused because I grew up, my dad made, at the very minimum, he made like $80,000 a year. He had basically tried to trade stocks with leverage, which means borrowed money, when I was probably like 1 or 2 years old, or maybe before I was born. I think I was like 1 or 2. Or maybe right before I was born. I don't remember. I don't know. But at most, I was like 2 years old. And he lost. The stocks went the wrong way, or the opposite way where he thought they were going to go. And because he was using leverage, you know, you multiply it, I don't want to say exponentially, but you multiply by many factors the amount of money that you're losing. Again, if you know anything about stock trading, that's how leverage works. He never bankrupted. He insisted he had to pay off the whole debt, which is kind of psychotic because he was never, ever, ever going to be able to pay it off. I'm telling you, back in the 2000s, he was making $100K a year. Nowadays, if you make $100K a year in 2025, you should probably make $200K a year. But back in the 2000s, $100K a year was good money. $200K a year was like you're crazy wealthy, and $100K a year was like you're doing good. He insisted on paying off the debt, which he never ended up being able to pay off. He insisted he can't bankrupt, it'll ruin his credit. When he divorced my mother, he went bankrupt. He went to my grandma's house, my nana's house, his mom, my paternal grandma. He bankrupted. He left my mom, divorced my mom, bankrupted. Within a year, he married a new woman and bought a house. So this whole thing where he can't go bankrupt and he can't buy our family a house is all bullshit. And again, he bought a house very shortly after going bankrupt. Now, his new wife helped him to buy the house, yes, with her credit and her income, yes. But I'm saying the whole concept that he could not bankrupt It's not true. And I told my dad this. In the past couple years, I said, Dad, you could have bankrupted when I was 10 years old, 12 years old, when I was young. And within 7 years, your credit would have recovered. You made significant enough income that you could have bought us a house if you wanted to. You just didn't want to buy us a house. Now, some people say, well, your dad doesn't have to buy a house. Well, let's look at the context. First of all, no one has to do anything, I guess, right? But let's look at the context. He made $100K a year since I was a baby. He has a degree in finance from BYU, a degree in accounting from Cal State Fullerton, an MBA. I'm putting my dad on blast, as the kids say, and I should have done this a long time ago. It's something that's affected my life a lot, which is a good and a bad thing, a right and a wrong thing. It makes sense, but ultimately, my life is my own life. And many people have been wronged much worse than me, have been betrayed and backstabbed and let down much worse than me. So it's not, as adults, we can't put the blame on anybody else, no matter what happened. Things that are horrific that we don't even want to mention on YouTube. I'm not saying there's not a healing process. There is. I'm not saying it doesn't damage you, at least temporarily. It does damage you. I want to say if you let it damage you, but in many cases, sometimes you just get damaged. That's something I'm not going to make a definitive statement. Whether you let it happen or it happens, I'm not going to make a definitive statement. I suppose each case is different each case is different case by case. And I also will say, the closest thing I'll say to making a definitive statement is perhaps you're in charge of if it damages you or not. And that's about as definitive a statement I will say. I do understand what it is to be not that I've been a victim per se, but I do understand there are victims. There are victims. And don't get mad at me or do get mad at me. But there is such a thing as refusing to be a victim and declaring that you're not a victim. For me, it took me like 6-7 years to get to that point. And all I'm talking about is that my dad gave the best of his financial power and of his, loyalty to another family, which is not really my family. They're like my stepsisters and stepbrothers, but I'm not saying anything bad about the kids. My stepbrothers and stepbrothers, I have nothing bad to say about them at all. And I'm not even really talking about the new wife my father married. I don't really want to say anything about her. You could probably guess I may or may not be the biggest fan of her, but I'm not really saying much about her. I'm not really saying anything technically about her. Not because I'm a coward. I just don't want to. I just don't want to. Something about being a man is when you speak bad about a woman, you should, if possible, avoid that. And in my heart, I don't want to say, I don't want to touch that topic. I don't really know her. I don't have anything to say really about her much, not publicly, and maybe not even to her face. And yeah, I have my thoughts and opinions, and I'm sure people know them because you could feel these things. Is she a bad lady? No. But again, I don't really want to say anything about her. And maybe she is a bad lady, but I'm not saying she is. I'm saying, I don't know. I'm not saying anything about her, but I am saying my father, who I came from his nutsack, came from his sperm. I have half of his DNA is running through my veins, in my tissue, my bones, my brain. Yeah, he definitely let me down. And again, people have been let down way worse by their fathers. Some people have been abused in unspeakable ways by their fathers. For the most part, that wasn't really me. And if that was, I don't want to get into it on a video here. But I don't think anyone should really say those things on a public YouTube video. Might have been when I was little, which always makes me think, what kind of person is my father? At a certain point, I had to realize that no matter how bad he is, no matter how much integrity he lacks, no matter what kind of a not good person he is, I'm my own man. You know what I mean? I'm my own man. So that's actually a perfect segue into what I wanted to talk about today. The first 5 years back from my mission, I was traumatized by what happened to my dad, what my dad did to me and my family, without being straightforward about it, doing it literally behind my back. I also didn't like that my mother or my sister or nobody else, no one in my church told me what had happened. I suppose that, and that's to this day, and I've always been this way, but even when I was a kid, but this probably fortified. It probably really, really contributed, like, quite frankly, it cemented. And this is a true principle, and we all live by principles. You cannot do this thing where, like, well, I thought he was going to bring the sandwiches. Well, I thought she was going to bring the sandwiches. Well, I thought they were going to bring the sandwiches. And then you're at a party and there's no sandwiches. You can't say, I thought she was going to. You have to, the buck stops with you. If you're going to be a successful person in life, the buck stops with you. If you're going to be a leader, if you're going to be the change maker, the buck stops with you. So my sister maybe thought, oh, my mom will say, my dad will say. My mom thought, well, maybe my dad, my husband, my ex-husband will say. My dad might have thought, oh, maybe my mom or his mom will tell him. Nobody told me. Nobody told me my dad divorced my mom. Nobody told me my dad married a new woman. Nobody told me my dad bought a new house with a new woman. In my dad's defense, not that he needs defending, he said that, oh, well, I had job insecurity. I had a hard time keeping a job. The job market was bad. The crash of '08. Bullshit. He could have bought us a house. In Spanish, there's the saying, el querer es poder, which also brings me into what I'm going to talk about. Which, querer es poder is to say, wanting to is to be able to. Roughly. I've never really found the exact translation for that phrase. Some things don't necessarily exactly translate. And when I say that, I mean, unless you speak another language, you can't understand the nuances. So the most accurate way to translate something is to give several meanings or several translations, which some may argue is an indirect or inaccurate translation. But again, because you cannot encapsulate, you cannot transfer the knowledge of all the nuances in a holistic way, the best translation from language to language is to give several translations in the new language. So you could say, to be able to do something is to want to do something is to be able to do something. Wanting to is to be able to. If you want to do something, you can. Those are the translations of el querer es poder. But it's also literally translated as, like, wanting to is being able to, kind of. So that's what I say about my dad. If he wanted to buy us a house, he could have. People who made a lot less money than him bought people houses. Especially back then, the lending laws were so easy. And I will not shut up about this because it's the God honest truth. He made $100K a year ever since I was a kid. I can go through the jobs. Herbalife, he made $100K a year. Then he worked at Azteca Jeans. I'm a sharp, by the way. I do not have a photographic memory. And if I do, I believe it's partial because it's not like I can remember every single thing but I remember things very, very vividly, clearly. I remember people's faces. I remember images. I remember like it's a video in my mind. The only thing, and I'm not trying to be ungrateful, but I'm kind of jealous of people that do have photographic memory because my memory is so good. I wish I had a photographic memory. It's not quite photographic, but it's very, very, very maybe a couple steps down from very good memory. Azteca Jeans, he made $80K a year. They didn't like him. He got let go or pushed out or whatever. I don't remember. Sometimes he resigned before they fired him. Sometimes he got let go. After Azteca Jeans, he worked for Diamond Energy in downtown LA in the Wells Fargo building. He took me to I think it was the 33rd floor. Beautiful view. One of my fondest memories of being a kid. He had these clickety-clack, were they Stacey Adams shoes or were they Floorshines? I think they were Floorshine dress shoes. Back in the day, accountants had to dress up in business wear, which was basically, that was what it was. I don't know if it's changed, probably changed. Florsheim doesn't even make shoes with wooden soles anymore. They make shoes with rubber soles, like dress tennis shoes. It's disgusting. But back in the day, his boss told him he has to get new shoes. So he bought a new pair of Florsheim shoes, slacks, tie, suit actually. Great stuff. Classy. That was the way class was a thing back then. And it should be a thing to this day. Of course, fashion changes. Things come in and out of fashion. So he worked at the Wells Fargo building, Diamond Energy. I think he made, I want to say $120,000 a year at that job. Great job. He made a small error, a couple hundred dollars error in a matter of like tens of thousands, or I don't think it was hundreds of thousands. I think it was tens of thousands of dollars. And his error, because he was an accountant, he is an accountant. That's what he does. All his life has been an accountant. His error was like a couple $100, like 400 something bucks was off. And they wrote him up. They did not fire him. They wrote him up. And he felt stressed and pressured and threatened. Maybe understandably so, but what he did is he resigned, which he should not have. And after that, he worked for, as a contract worker for, don't tell me, I know this. An energy company, I forget the name right now, an energy company which was in charge of some power plants in Southern California. I'm born and raised in SoCal, born and raised in LA County. I'm LA through and through. I love LA with all my heart. Yes, there's some people there that are not perfect. But you'll never understand unless you're from there. If you know, you know. I make no apologies. I don't love everything about LA. Part of the problem is our elected leaders don't do the right thing. But that's also part of the culture. That's also part of why LA is LA. If we always had conservative leaders in LA, the artists would feel threatened and stressed, and there wouldn't be as many artists and gay people in LA as there are. Part of why they flock to LA is because of the blue politics. Part of why things don't run right is because of the blue politics. People are corrupt on the left, people are corrupt on the right. I'm not saying conservative leaders would make everything perfect or be perfectly honest, because, that's not what politics is, but sadly. But, I don't want to get into a whole tangent on LA, but I love LA. I acknowledge things are not perfect, but I also will tell you that's kind of how it is, and it's kind of like a chicken or the egg situation. It's very complex, but anyways, either you love LA or you don't, or you're neutral. Let's move on. I sure as heck love LA with all my heart. I love it. I wish it was better. I'd love to be mayor of LA and fix things, because I understand the blue-haired people and the artists and the gays, and I'm not going to eradicate them. I'm not going to get rid of them. I'm not going to, tell them they can't have their blue hair. I would just like to be very chill and be very good vibes with all the people, and just make LA cleaner and run better. And maybe I will be mayor of LA one day. Maybe not, but it's a goal that I've thought about. As crazy as it might seem, I've never had enough money to afford let's just move on. You don't know where life's going to take you. But long story short, so where was I? Oh yeah, my dad, he made tons of money on it. And then when I was in high school, my last 2 years of high school, he stopped looking for a job. He said he couldn't get a good job. I don't know how true or not that was. He suffered from well, maybe he did. But he was experimenting. I think he was experimenting very poor mental health, because he didn't love my mom. I think it was really a lot of stuff that I don't want to say on a public YouTube video, but like stuff that's like common hiccups in a marriage. But also I don't know how much he ever loved my mom. Whatever. In hindsight, it makes me think a lot about why you should marry somebody and why you should not marry someone. What are the reasons you should? And I'm going to dip into that real quick. You should marry somebody. And by the way, if this feels like a podcast, then enjoy. I'm not here to please everybody. So if you like this video, keep watching. If you don't, then you shouldn't. I don't know why you're watching. You should marry somebody because you truly love them. Now, that's one thing on one side. There's 3 things we're going to talk about. 1 is if you truly love them. 2 is if they meet your standards of what you expect out of a spouse or a life partner. Let's just say spouse, because if you're going to marry them, spouse. And 3 is if they're so 2 is if they meet your requirements for what you want out of a partner and your looks and physicality requirements. We'll group that in the same group. And the last one, let's do 4 things. 1, if you really love them. 2, if they meet your requirements for what you want out of a spouse. 3, if they meet your physicality and looks requirements, attractiveness requirements, your idea of what's very, very attractive. And 4, if you are willing to, I don't want to say absorb, I don't want to say live with, I don't want to say deal with. If you're willing to absorb, live with, deal with the bullshit that they throw at you. Some people have no bullshit. That's not true. Some people have all the bullshit. Sadly, that's true. And most people have some bullshit here or there. Nobody's perfect. Whatever their bullshit is, their flaws, their weaknesses, are you willing to live with that? You cannot necessarily change that or eradicate that or stop that or fix that? Maybe, but is that your job as a spouse? That's not necessarily your job. It's not necessarily not your job, but it's definitely not your specific job. If that's what you're thinking is, that's the wrong mentality about marriage. Your job is not to fix someone or heal someone. Now, you might, in the course of marrying them, you might contribute to them being healed or fixed, but that's not your job. And you shouldn't even expect. You should be okay that if they never heal or never fix themselves or never get better with whatever problems they have, mental, physical, emotional, you should be able to deal with that. So in other words, let's say worst case scenario, they're sick emotionally, they're sick mentally, they're sick physically. I'm not going to get into details. It could be any of those things, and they never get better. You got to be okay with them as they are if they never get better. Now, hopefully they do. And a lot of times people do get better over the course of a lifetime. Say they have physical ailments, they can get better, but they could not get better. Say they have emotional ailments, mental ailments, whatever. They could get better, but they might not. And you got to be okay with it. I just said, I don't want to repeat myself, right? You got to be okay with them as they are if they never get better. That's the fourth thing. I'm going back in backwards order now. And the third thing, physicality, what you physically think of as attractive. If you're a woman who needs a tall guy, well, I don't want to say needs. It's up to you if you need that. If that's something you need, oh. If it's something you want, oh, which is different than if you need it. If it's something that you like, oh. If it's something you don't care about, then why are we talking about height? Like, I'm short. Some women want a tall guy. Okay, but there's one factor is height. One factor is, if they think you have a great face, if they think you have a great body, if they think you have a great bone structure. I'm talking about, I guess, what women would think of as in guys. I'm not an expert at that. Some women want a guy with a thick beard. I cannot really grow that thick of a beard, as you notice, on the side of my face. This is a little bit thicker, but even then you can see right through to my skin. I don't know, like everyone has their different things, what they look for. You have skin color, eye color, face shape, nose shape. In men, we have facial hair or we don't. We're if you go to the gym and get buff, it's different than your natural genes. I can go get super buff, but I'm a small framed guy. I'm not a big guy, I'm a small guy, a tiny guy. And even if I get super strong, I'm still 5'4". My shoulders are not that wide. And I guess with women, it's probably going to offend a lot of people, but we all can, the hair, the pretty face, what's upstairs, what's downstairs, we get it, right? Some people, like I like small feet. Whenever I think a woman's really attractive, I literally do this. I look down at her feet and I notice her shoe size. And if her shoes are big, I'm like, oh, okay, I like her, but I should chill because, things are different to different people. I really like this one woman a lot, and I liked her so much I never even looked at her shoes because it's like I don't give a fuck how big or small her feet are. And then I noticed her feet are like really nice. They're like a perfect size. I'm like, oh, perfect. That's awesome. True story. I don't know why I feel like I shouldn't have put that in this video. I don't know why. Something's telling me I shouldn't have put that detail. I don't know why. You get these feelings sometimes. I'm probably gonna be too lazy to go to CapCut and edit that part out. So I guess I don't know if it affects anything or if it doesn't. But I'm saying, guys, that's number 3. What you physically think is attractive should be taken into account very seriously, because you don't have to do anything. You don't have to sleep with the person, but possibly you'll end up sleeping with the person through the course of a marriage. And not just sleeping with them. You need to hold them. You need to hold their hand. You need to be physically, and this is something I don't want to say the word need, because that's not appropriate to say the word need in this context, but I'm saying it's very likely you'll support them, not besides sleeping with them and making love with them and making love to them. It's very likely you'll be supportive of them in a physical way. Women often call that cuddling, but it's not, it's cuddling and it's other things. It's, this is stuff that I don't have to explain. So if you don't find your spouse sufficiently attractive, it's a problem. And you can't really fix or change that. So you should really be very strict with your standards on that. And number 2, do they meet what you expect out of a partner? By the way, I'm saying all this as a guy who's renting a room, who doesn't have his finances together, who's losing my hair, as you can see. Sorry, I haven't taken a shower yet, so I'm not gonna like try to fool you guys. It's total bullshit that I've showered yet. I'm gonna go shower. I often record things before I shower, which is probably obviously it's not ideal in certain ways, but I kind of feel like when I want to express myself, it's like a before shower type of mental spiritual framework, and then after I shower, I don't want to talk about personal things or communicate things on a close level for some reason. Like for example, after I shower, I'm gonna go film stuff for my Spanish page, which is not personal. It's just learn about Spanish. I'm losing my hair. I don't have much of any money as of this recording. I'm 5'4". I stopped lifting weights, stopped working out, so all my muscle that I had has turned to fat. I have very impressive man boobs because I used to have a lot of pectoral muscle from bench pressing literally almost every day. At least many times 5-6 times a week, at least 3 to 5 times a week. And when I say 3 to 5 times a week, I'm often telling you that I'd go to the gym. This is the truth. I'd often go to the gym twice a day, 3 times a day sometimes. I had a goal of bench pressing the most amount of weight. I don't want to tell you guys my goal. It's still a goal that I have, but long story short, my muscle has turned to fat, which it would have done probably anyways naturally, but there is more, and I do have like I've always had like a bigger chest and like a lot of like chest fat on my chest. So like I naturally have boobs for some weird reason. And then when I did bench press, I got some more muscle. And I was still doing everything I could that I didn't look like I had boobs, because I do have like this extra like padding on my chest. But then when I stopped working out, the muscle I had on my chest turned to fat, added to the fat that I already had naturally. And I just have really prominent man titties now, which I'm not saying I'm like I'm not saying I'm like, as of this recording, I'm not saying you would find me as the catch of the century. If you break it down, okay? Maybe I am, but you wouldn't see that till the future. Maybe I am on a spiritual level, but physically I'm lacking, financially I'm lacking as of this recording. Not to say that I'll be physically or spiritually lacking in the future, which is an interesting thing to take into account. I would be very careful, or maybe even cautious, how much you take into account people's potential. I would probably date them based on what they bring to the table, not based on what they can bring to the table. That's something I don't really want to get into. I mean, I kind of did already get into it, but I don't want to get into it on this video. But I would probably date them on what they bring to the table. But that's a personal decision, quite frankly. So, 2, right? Do they meet the standards of what you want? I'm not talking about physicality anymore. I'm talking about, because that's number 3, remember. I forget what number 4 was, but if I played the video back, I'd see it. I'd watch it and see it. Number 2 is like, okay, if you're a man, do you want a woman who cooks or not? Some people it's important, some people it's not. Some people never thought about it before. Do you want a woman who is energetic and peppy and pipey? And do you want a woman who's more laid back? Some women are both. Some women are peppy and pipey when they're in a certain mood. Some women are very sullen and silent and solitary when they're in another mood. I think a lot of women flux. But there are some women that are almost always, I mean, I haven't met every woman on the planet yet, but, it's probably most people that are both of those things. But like, what kind of woman are you looking for, right? Or like, woman, as a guy, do you want a guy who loses his temper? Some women don't want that. Some women do want that, don't want that, never thought about it. Do you want a guy who is strict and controlling? Do you want a guy who says, hey, you're not going to go out dancing without me? You're not going to go out dancing to the club with your girlfriends. That's not going to fly. Do you want a guy who's like, hey, have fun? These are all things of how someone is. Do you want a guy who brings money to the table? Okay. He's a good breadwinner. He gets that guacamole. Do you want a guy who drives recklessly, drives safely, if your guy drives really slow and it's a turnoff for you, maybe, if your guy drives really fast and you get turned on, or the opposite. Some women don't like when guys drive fast. They get scared and startled. They're like, stop, whatever. I've met all sorts of girls. I've met girls who like me driving fast. I've dated girls who like me driving fast, and I've dated girls who like me driving slow. And I don't want to focus in on just driving, but I'm saying that's the type of thing I'm talking about. Who someone is, and like standards, like their hygiene standards, what their finances are like, how they deal with, like, if you guys get the wrong burgers when you go out to get burgers, how does he handle it? Does he want to be dramatic about it? Does he want to complain? Does he want to just eat the burgers that you guys didn't order, eat the wrong order? Does he go too far when he tries to complain? Does he lose his cool? Does he have composure? If there's someone who needs help, does he stand up for the person who needs help? Does he defend someone? Does he say, oh, no, let's mind our own business, I'm scared, I don't want to get involved? Maybe he does something in between? I don't know, like, oh, we should do, I don't know, like, and I guess at this point, number 2 would include the character of the person. But who they are, looks aside, because looks is number 3. It has its own category. That's how important it is. Who they are. So at this point, you could have someone who's really, I don't want to get into the specifics. I mean, I don't want to give examples. You guys don't need me to do that. And then number 1 is, what was number 1? Shit. Fuck, what is fucking number 1? You guys get the point, okay? There's those different points to consider. If you go back and go through this video, comb through it, you'll get number 1, 2, 3, 4. But long story short, why did I even talk about this? I guess it was important. The first 5 years back from my mission, I lived a lot of life. And a lot of the life I lived was not my highest version, because independent of anybody else, I was being a pussy. I was being scared. A pussycat, right? For that, I don't know if the algorithm's going to punish me for saying that. I was being a pussycat. How stupid that we can't even say English words, right? I think I could say that, but I hope this video stays on YouTube. I pray to God it does, because it's a really good video. I was being a pussycat. And that has nothing to do with anybody else. And I also was angry at other people in my life, such as my father, which didn't help me get ahead. Because as a victim mentality, it could be said that I was a victim, but it could be said that I wasn't a victim. That's really up to you. I allowed myself to be a victim. I either consciously or passively decided I was a victim. Many times it was consciously. I was like, fuck this, fuck that, fuck, what this person did to me, and those type of things. And quite frankly, I was like, fuck my dad, because he didn't treat me fairly. And very creepy. I never knew who Ted Bundy was, but then I guess I just kept hearing about him through popular culture. I finally researched him, like, oh, not healthy. My dad strikes me as a Ted Bundy type of guy. I'm not accusing him of having done that to women, but I'm saying the impression I get, my personal feeling, is he reminds me of Ted Bundy. I'm not accusing him of having done anything. I don't have any evidence. That's not true. I have a lot of evidence of a lot of things. What I am saying, I'm not accusing him of having done what Ted Bundy did to women. But I'm saying that's the impression I get, that he's that type of person. He lacks a lot of empathy. He almost lacks empathy entirely. So realizing who my dad was creepy and off-putting, but it did make sense how a person could treat someone that way if they don't have empathy, if they're someone who, is, quite frankly, he gives me the creeps, quite frankly. And then I had to battle with, who do I want to be? I carry his DNA. So that's when epigenetics is really the saving grace, that I love epigenetics, because if I have genes that I could be unempathetic or like negative genes, epigenetics is where you, through your conscious attitudes and actions and behavior and vibrations and mentality and thought processes and your spirit and your soul, you can reshift your DNA. And they have done a lot of studies on this stuff. So, I don't want to hate my dad. I hated my dad for many years. That's not a positive thing, and I didn't get much of anything done during those years. So I don't hate him anymore. But there's a lot of him that I don't want nothing to do with, a lot of him that I want nothing to be like. Ideally, I want him to be my life, but if he is a sicko, which he is, that's the impression that I have. That's my understanding of him. That's how he's interacted with me as someone with no empathy who gives me the creeps. And those two things, then I don't want that in my life. I don't want the part, that type of interaction. I wish my dad was a healthy man, a man with a good heart and a good, who had integrity and a good heart. And if that was the case, I'd deep down, he's my father. So I do want him in my life, but not if he's sick or abusive or cruel or manipulative. I can't afford to have the unhealthiness in my life. But no. See, my dad's the type of person that he would take this video if he saw it and say, hey, you don't want me in your life, do you? Okay, so you get what you want. There you go. That's the type of guy my dad is. Creepy, I know. Unhealthy, I know. Abusive, manipulative, I know. But I made a lot of conscious decisions of who people are, how people, not just my family, people in general. And I'm very intentional. And I'm not saying this to be like a trendy word. I'm literally being honest with you. I've been very intentional about who I want to be. I don't like to trick people. I don't like to manipulate people. I don't like to do any of those dirty tricks because that's how I was raised. I was raised on manipulation and intimidation and abusive, dogmatic, verbal abuse. And my sister was too. And that's why she married the wrong guy. Because she never healed.